Hi everybody. In this video we're going to talk about converting from one unit of measurement to another. In my day, back in the day, we called it factor labeling. Now I think a term that they use is dimensional analysis. And I think it's one of the most important things you can learn how to do in math is to convert from one unit of measurement to another because it's so practical in your everyday life, or you have to do some kind of a conversion to figure something out. Like for instance, in cooking and baking, you have to convert sometimes. If you're doing any kind of carpentry work or projects or knitting or any kind of hobby, you might have to do some kind of conversion. So I think this is a really important section. In our example here, we're going to convert miles to meters. Okay, so we're going to start off with a mile, and we want to get to how many meters is that. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I got to think about, miles to meters, that's US customary to the metric system. The only thing that I know off the top of my head that I remember is 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 inch. I mean, I was an engineer back in the day, so maybe that's why I remember that, but that's what I remember, okay? So, all right, so let's convert, let's try to get miles into inches. Let's try to figure out if we can get miles into inches. I can't do that right off the bat, but I do know that how many feet are in a mile. There's 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Now, what did I do? I wrote this as kind of like as a fraction, and I put 5,280 feet over 1 mile. I mean, I could have wrote 1 mile over 5,280 feet, but the reason that I put the feet on top of the miles is because I want the miles to cancel out. You have mile over mile. So basically what you're doing is you're converting 1 mile to feet. So far we converted 1 mile to feet. We have inches though that we have to get to. So let's convert feet to inches. So I think we know that one. I'm going to put 1 foot on the bottom because I know I want feet to cancel out. And is it 12 inches? Right? So what we're effectively doing here is we're converting feet into inches. Now the feet cancel out and you're just left with inches on the top. So far we've converted miles into inches. But we don't want inches, we want meters eventually. I can get the centimeters at this point, right? So I can use that fact that I knew that 1 inch, I'll put the inch on the bottom, and put the centimeters on the top, so then the inches cancel out, right? But I don't want centimeters, I want meters. I think we have one more step. How do we get from centimeters to meters? Well, I think there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. Oh, look what we got here. We got it down to, we went from miles to meters because everything else canceled out. And on your calculator, you would do 5,280 times 12 times 2.54, whatever that is, divided by 100, because you got 100 on the bottom over there. Okay, so that's how you would do miles to meters. All right, I'm going to tilt this down a little bit. How about if they asked us to convert from, let's say, feet squared to meters squared? Oh, squared. We're talking area, right? You might have to do a conversion for area unit conversion. So let's say we start off with 1 foot squared. You know, how are we going to do this? Well, it's actually very similar to what we just did, except we have to take an extra step. We already got feet. We want to get to meters. So what do we know? We know, what did we know? Let's try to get to inches squared because we know this, right? That's one conversion fact I know between metric and the US customary. So instead of feet squared, let's get to inches squared. So let's see. Well, I know that 1 foot is 12 inches, right? And you go, oh, okay, they cross off. But there's foot squared on top. There's only 1 foot to the first power on the bottom. So what you got to do is do it again. So now both of your feet canceled out with that foot squares. You got inches squared. So you successfully converted to inches squared. But I want to get to meters squared eventually. So let's convert over to centimeters squared. So what, you got to do it twice, right? So now the 2 inches on top cancel out the 2 inches on the bottom. And then what do you got to do? Last step. We don't want centimeters squared. We want meters squared. So you got to do it twice to cancel out those 2 centimeters on the top. So on your calculator, you would do 12 times 12 times 2.54 times 2.54, whatever that is, divide it by 100 times 100. Whatever, you know. So that's how you would get to from feet squared to meters squared. And you might even have you do, how about feet cubed to meters cubed? That's volume, right? Cubic, that's volume. So in this case, you start off with 1 foot cubed, and you want to get to meters cubed. It's very similar to what you did for area, except you got to do each thing 3 times. So you got to get from foot cubes to inches cubed. So you got to do that 12 inches over 1 foot 3 times. It takes a lot of space, you guys. So now the foot cubes all canceled out, and you're left with inches cubed. But now you want to get the centimeters cubed. So you got to do 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch 3 times. Right? And then finally, you got to get to, you want to get to what? You want to get to meters cubed, right? So what do you got to do? So you got to do 1 meter is 100 centimeters 3 times. You got to do that 3 times. Okay? So everything cancels out except for meters cubed on top. So we got to meters cubed. So that's a quick go over of dimensional analysis, or vector labeling as I called it. In this case, we did, just a distance conversion. We did an area conversion, and we did a volume conversion. All right. So I hope that helps. You might encounter some problems like that in the future. See you later.